Everyone. My name is Evelyn Prim. I'm the Communications Coordinator for the City of Montpelier, and I am here today with Mike Miller, the Director of the Planning and Community Development Department. And Mike is going to run through the proposed FY25 budget for the Planning Department. And so we'll share our screen so you can see the slides, and then we'll get going. All right, take it away, Mike.
All right, so good morning and happy holidays. And so this morning I will be helping to present the FY25 budget for the Planning and Community Development Department, but also the Building Inspection and Code Enforcement budget. So these are two budgets that are both operated out of my office. And so we'll run through these. And so the agenda today is to first introduce my team, which you see here, and then have some discussion of the core services that we will have in FY25 and some services and constraints. Then we'll go through the budget, and then what are some challenges and opportunities that this will present for next year, and then how this interacts with our community and strategic plan contributions. And then Evelyn will go over what's next in the process. So the organizational chart for the Planning and Community Development Department, we're a relatively small department here in the city. We have 3.8 employees, including me. And so we've got the Community Development Specialist, Josh Jerome, he's full-time. And Meredith Crandall is our zoning administrator, and she is 0.8 full-time equivalents. So she works Monday through Thursday. And then we have a planning and zoning assistant, Audrey Brown. Now, the building inspection position is one that is shared between the fire chief and myself. So Michelle Savory, who is our building inspector, she actually reports to both of us and works closely with both of us because the fire chief is also the health officer, and Michelle is the assistant health officer. So they work closely on a number of inspections and issues. So our core services for FY25 are going to be very similar to what we have already been working on here in FY24. The Planning and Community Development Department really focuses on four primary areas. One is planning. So we develop city plans, we do other studies, we update the zoning. These are all looking at long-term planning initiatives. What should we be doing? What are we trying to do? Having public input on a number of long-term goals that we might have as a city. And then we also have three other services that we do that really are more focused on implementing those plans. So how do we make those plans happen? Some of them happen through permitting, and our staff does the zoning and the river hazard regulations. And we have the community and economic development arm, which handles the programs like grant writing, administration of grants, special projects like Country Club Road, and a lot of the flood grant work is being handled through the community and economic development specialist, Josh Jerome. And then we have other programs such as the community rating system, E911 road naming, and the emergency relief and assistance fund, which is through the state of Vermont. So all of these are programs and things that take staff time that we have to make sure we maintain our compliance with. And we do a lot of that through my office. In building and code enforcement, it's just as it seems. It's just focusing on primarily the building permits and inspections, but also if there are health code complaints, that will also come through Michelle's desk to review. The services and constraints for this year's budget coming up. So there were a number of project cuts. We are proposed to maintain all of our staff, so we're not going to lose any of the services in that area, but we are going to be proposing cutting funding to the Housing Trust Fund, the Public Arts Fund, and the Economic Development Fund. And these all have reserve funds, and they will cover the current programs that we have going on right now. So the reason we suggested cutting new funding is that we don't believe the impacts, there'll be a lot of impacts in this first year. But obviously, having those funds in the bank, we can use those funds, but we can't do that forever. So for 1 year, this is something that won't cause too many issues, but we can't sustain that over the long term. We will eventually have to get back to funding these programs again. Number two, some changes that we need to increase our fees just to help generate a little bit more revenue that comes in from things other than taxes, help to offset the taxes. So one thing we're suggesting is removing the fee exemptions for solar projects. It's not a big thing, but it could increase $5,000 to $10,000 the amount of fees that we would be able to receive for the city for building permits. And the other constraint that really comes in is we are a small department. That makes it very difficult. We have less room to cut. Most of our budget, as you'll see later on, is personnel. So unless we start cutting people and that directly cuts services, then we don't have a lot of room to cut other than the funding for special projects like the trust funds and economic development. So our budget, overall operating and personnel budget is going down this year, and this is due to a retirement in one of our positions and hiring a new person at less salary, and by the director not taking a pay raise. So overall, our budget will be down only $500, but it is going down a little bit. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the housing trust fund is typically $110,000. The housing committee requested $250,000, and we are proposing only $60,000. So there will be some money going into the housing trust fund, but the housing trust fund currently has in excess of $200,000 in reserves. So we think we will be fine in that for the coming year. Public arts is typically between 10 and 20,000. And we have zeroed out that they do have some money in reserves and don't have any major commitments at this time. Again, it should be something we can handle for 1 year, and then we will have to revisit next fall. And then there were a number of cuts to economic development. We have 2 pots of funds that were used in FY24 that totaled $140,000, and we used that money to plan for Country Club Road. In this year coming up, we expect much less need for the additional funding for planning. That step is already completed. And the next steps in preparation, a number of them can be done in-house. With my and Josh's expertise, we can go through and take care of a number of these next step pieces, but we will need to have some additional planning funds to help move that project forward. Building and code enforcement, the permit fees are expected to rebound. Plus, we have a proposal to remove the fee for solar panels, which I mentioned, and this results in revenues exceeding expenses. This is one of the few departments in the city where they actually take care of themselves. They fund themselves. Michelle's position is about $100,000, as you'll see, and she brings in about $100,000 in revenues. So there's sometimes a little bit above, sometimes a little bit below, but it is generally pretty close. And these are the budgets I was just referring to. So this year's budget for the planning and community development portion, and this is the historical going all the way back to FY16. Our budget is proposed to be $491,000, which is about $529 less than last year. So that is what we're looking at for this budget coming up. And for the building inspector position, you can see it stayed relatively the same over the past 9 or 10 years. It hasn't gone up very much, but this year the budget will go up $3,428, and it's mostly just through other costs that get automatically added to budgets across the board, whether it's increases in health insurance or pay raises or other pieces. So that's why there's a small increase to that budget. But we also hope to offset that with the increase in fees that we're collecting. So the challenges we'll be looking at next year, we will be hiring a new planning assistant. So we don't know how that's going to play out. Sometimes you get somebody with a lot of experience. Sometimes you get somebody who's brand new. And that's always a challenge to get them up to speed. Audra has been here for 17 years and she's retiring. And she leaves with a lot of institutional knowledge. And so we've got a lot of training. There's a lot of moving parts to that position. So we really will have to be working hard to get that position back up to speed. As I mentioned, using reserve funds means less opportunities to react to opportunities. We just have to take each case as it comes forward, and we'll see what opportunities present themselves in the next year and figure out how to address them. The challenges also this budget limits our ability to fully prepare for the Country Club Road project. Previously, we had $100,000, $140,000 to be able to apply to that project to keep it moving forward. We have removed all those funds, so we're going to still move it forward using staff time, but it does limit our ability to very quickly act on advancing that project. But we are still hoping to keep it on track. The costs of relocating back to City Hall really aren't in this budget. So as you see on the side, our offices were in the basement of City Hall, and we were flooded with about 40 inches of water into our offices. So all of our files were, most of our files were flooded. Our desks, everything was destroyed. We lost all of our desks, computers, chairs, everything. So we had a lot of recovery to do ourselves from the flood. And we were moved out to the senior center and then to the police station where we are now. And eventually next year, whether it's FY25 or FY26, we will have to be moving back. And the costs of relocating back, getting desks, chairs, all the pieces that you need to have an office, that's going to come back as a cost. And that isn't in this budget. So that'll be a challenge. And we eventually need to digitize files. So all the files you see here that were soaked, they were all dried, but we now are operating a system where we have a paperless office. So all of the files are digitized. We don't have any files, any paper files going forward, but we do have all those historical files that do need to be scanned and sorted and put into the digital files. And we have a digital system to do that, but it will take a lot of time. And we have not put any time into this budget to be able to address the needs of scanning all of those files. So what opportunities do we have coming up? We have some, obviously, we've proposed to increase some fees a little bit. We've maintained our operating costs. So non-personnel costs have all been maintained, level funded. And we still have a small amount of money for grant matches. That's $6,000. So if we have grants that are available, we will have some money in order to match them. So we do have some opportunities out there to take advantage of. So how does the Planning and Community Development Department fit into the overall community and strategic plan? One of the city goals, and it's been a goal for a long time, is to create more housing. And our entire department, both departments, work on this every day, issuing permits promptly, guiding people through the process, actively partnering with developers, and obviously with the Country Club Road project. These are all opportunities that we have and projects we have, strategies we have to help create more housing. We're also working to improve community prosperity. Josh's position is the Community and Economic Development Specialist. So with the Montpelier Development Corp no longer existing, those responsibilities and tasks that they were handling were shifted to Josh when he was hired, because he has that experience and he brought that experience with him from his previous jobs that he had. So he's doing a great job in working with businesses and helping to bring in new businesses and find locations for businesses to kind of grow into. And the last of our place where we really overlap is the rebuild and plan for resiliency. So again, the Community and Economic Development Specialist is our primary person in City Hall who is applying for FEMA funding to do things like elevate Dog River Road that will help to protect our wastewater treatment plant. We also need to complete the effluent bypass project, which has been ongoing for a number of years, and that will help with ice melting. And there are a number of projects, whether they're for the city or for city residents. He's exploring a number of these grants to help bring money to the city. So those are some of the key places that my department works to overlap with the strategic plan. And if you have any questions on my budget, please contact me. I'm always available. The best way to get in touch with me is by email at mmiller@montpelier-vt.org. Or again, my office is now over in the police station in the community room, and that's where you can find all of my staff. And I'll give it back to Evelyn.
Great, thanks, Mike. So also on the screen here, just a reminder that we have 2 public hearings on the budget coming up on January 10th and 24th. All that information on where to attend is on our website in the Agenda Center. And then the City Council decision on the budget to make it onto the March ballot is January 25th. So immediately following the second public hearing. And then town meeting day is when the community gets to vote on the eventual proposed budget. And that is March 5th. So thanks again for watching. Please check out all the other videos in the playlist to see the other departments' budgets. All right, thanks again, Mike.
Thanks.